Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome. It's been a long time. I had to take a break, and I'm feeling great now, and I'm glad to be back on with you guys here. And I'm going to talk about something that I think you guys are going to love a lot, and I think that this is going to help a lot of you guys. It might change the perspective on how you view the world, and it may even help you in being more effective in changing the world and in influencing other people to see the world this way. All right, so what I'm going to talk about today is this book called The Tao of Systems Thinking. All right, it's by Michael McCurley. And this book is supposed to mirror the Tao Te Ching. All right, this is an Eastern mystical book or philosophical book from over 2,000 years ago. It's like 2,500 years ago by Lao Tzu. All right, it's supposed to mirror that philosophy, that kind of thinking, that kind of mysticism with systems thinking. And if you want to learn more about systems thinking, there's a book right here that I highly recommend called Thinking in Systems by Donella H. Meadows. And this is supposed to help us see how everything is all connected. All right, so how governments, for example, influence things in nature, and how when that gets affected, that affects people. And within people, we have our own systems, our biological systems, our spiritual systems. This can help influence the way that we think. It can influence the way that we behave with other people, right? Certain traumatic events or certain things that we put in our bodies, certain foods that we eat, all of that can affect our behavior. And right now, people in power are using this against us. Like they're putting all these harmful ingredients in our food that influence the way that we think negatively. And it makes us less efficient at making changes. So the more we become aware of this, the more we become aware of how these systems work, the more effective we will be at actually changing the world. All right, so again, this book right here, it highlights feedback loops between people, nature, governments, reality, computers. Everything in reality is connected. And again, in order to understand them better, we need to think more about how they work as a system. All right, how one thing can affect another thing. And whether it be yourself or the country or the world, in order to change it, you have to understand how the system works. All right, many of you are several steps ahead in understanding what the best solution will be now that a lot of you guys understand how people in Congress are bought off, for example, right? You understand that aspect of the system. But there may be other aspects that you may be overlooking that may make your approach to getting to these solutions less effective. But we can improve this. We can improve this by thinking more in systems, by looking at by studying the system more. All right. And the less that we know about the system, the less effective we are at changing it. So, for example, if you don't understand how much control lobbyists and investment firms like BlackRock and Vanguard Group and State Street have on our elections, without knowing that, people are going to be wasting their time thinking that general elections are an effective way to change the country. All right, when you don't look at how much control they have on our elections and how we don't have election integrity, right? That they pretty much choose who we have as president. They pretty much choose who we have in Congress, right? A lot of us understand that because we studied that system. Another example, not understanding how your own behavior can negatively affect the way that you work with people or how you get along with family members. Some of us are too aggressive when it comes to the way that we deliver our opinions or information that we come across. There are effective ways of informing your friends and family, and there's definitely ineffective ways. I know that I've been guilty of that. It's something that I've been working on, and it's something that I'm becoming more aware of and learning how to be more effective at delivering that information to people that I'm close to. Because sometimes they might say something that I think is like, I don't know the best word to use, but just lacking awareness, or I think that they're overlooking certain things. Like they might think that, oh, voting for Democrats is a solution, or voting for Republicans is a solution. And that's because they're overlooking certain pieces of the puzzle of the system. They're overlooking how general elections are controlled by these corporations. Sometimes the best way is to be kind to them. Sometimes the best way may be to even just not say anything at all and lead by example. Or other times it's to just wait for the right opportunity. Or you may learn that with different people, certain methods work better. And understanding systems can also help you be more effective at delivering that information by understanding what certain things are important for them. Like, for example, if they have certain mental health issues, you can probably inform them about big pharma, or inform them about the food industry and how all of that can affect their mental health. Whether it be diseases that they have, like you can talk about the chemical industry, the food industry, whether it be gentrification, the school system. Like, a lot of teachers are unhappy with the school system, and if you understand how our government works, how corporations work, you can be more effective at explaining to these people what's going on. And there you have another more informed person out there. All right, they can go down that rabbit hole. Um, another thing, tracing all these problems back to capitalism. How did we get capitalism? We can get that answer by thinking more in systems. Same thing with the solution. Like, what do we do now that we have this? Now that we understand that capitalism is a big problem, what's the solution? And what's the most effective solution? All right, so a lot of that can be answered with a book like this, or at least can help you down the path of being more effective at delivering your message to people, and also being more aware about yourself. Right? Because I've been saying on this show that we can only change the world when we change ourselves first. All right, so I will start by reading chapter 1, and I can tie this back into stuff that's happening now today as I'm reading this. All right, so there's going to be 9 chapters, and we're going to start today with chapter 1. And then there's 9 chapters total. They're not very long. And at the end of the book, they also, the last few pages, they have the Tao Te Ching that's been translated. All right, so chapter 1, Our Universe, passages 1 through 9. Number 1, we all have a mother, and we know her name. But the mother of all things has no name. We call our mother Universe. All things flow from this same source and are interrelated. So again, this is talking about how all things are connected. 1.1, the connection between our world and the universe. Today we live in Gaia. Gaia is Earth. A world which seems complex and difficult to understand at times, but we know where we have come from and what we are part of. Having learned to manage small parts of our local world, we often compete with one another to obtain our wants and needs. Although our species has managed to dominate much of the planet we inhabit, Mother Gaia is relatively insignificant in comparison to our solar system, the galaxy, and the rest of the universe. So if any thoughts come up, you can write something in the chat, and I can give you my thoughts on what you say. But let's continue here. The boundaries of our understanding are established by the limits of our perceptions. Like flatlanders in a three-dimensional world, our universe is a dynamic unity. What we usually perceive is linear, consecutive, finite, and disconnected, but all of these have the same source and are interconnected. This is something that we can discover the more and more that we study systems. All right, originally you might think that you know something. Like, for example, originally people may have thought that the earth was flat, right? But upon further advances of technologies and studies and sciences, we learned that the earth may most likely not be flat and that it's most likely a sphere or whatever you want to call it. Number 2, what is manifested is generated by what is hidden. There is harmony in balancing opposites. 1.2, the harmony between apparent opposites. The macrocosmos and physical manifestations we see in our universe are bound by unseen forces, such as atomic forces, energy, entropy, and gravity. These create interrelationships between macrocosmic and microcosmic systems and tie them together. Living systems are also interrelated in similar ways, but through different means. In unicellular and multicellular organisms, and their interrelationships are regulated as well through organic chemistry, renewable energy, exchanges, and entropy. So I just want to comment here real quick. Understanding the human system, you can explain to people like how certain foods that we eat can affect their physiology, how maybe some things that they put in their body that's not food, or like certain jabs, if you study that, you can inform people about how it may be causing harm to them, or it may cause all these other issues, right? Sometimes that may be the case, but yeah, that's why it's important to study all these systems. It all compiles into making a more informed individual. The overall results of these interacting systems is a balanced harmony between the forces which may seem to be opposites. The centripetal force of gravity, which binds planets to solar systems. The same force which clusters stars into galaxies, or the binding forces of much smaller subatomic particles in atoms and molecules. The organic components which form cells and living organisms, and the regenerative nature of life, which reinitiates as individual life cycles end. Number 3, a balance among all things is equilibrium. This is difficult to attain and also to maintain. Living systems, however, harmonize and achieve a natural equilibrium. 1.3, balancing interactions. The resulting balance of constant system interactions may at times achieve equilibrium. This is difficult to maintain since relationships between multiple systems depend upon shifting potential and available energy, and entropy, which is energy loss. So a constant factor in the universe is change. Eventually, the balance or equilibrium of systems will be lost as entropy increases beyond the limits of available energy. These are principles, also known as the first and second laws of thermodynamics in physics, which apply whether we are talking about the life cycle of a star, man's use of limited hydrocarbon resources for energy and transportation, or the life cycles of multicellular organisms. Number 4, Once we use what we have, it cannot be used again. Levels of energy are common to all things and flow from higher to lower levels. Organic systems, however, are constantly renovated. 1.4. The underlying constant of entropy. Entropy is the energy limiting constant of all systems. Energy always flows from higher levels of order to lower ones, from usable to unusable. Like heat, energy dissipates. The solar energy our planet receives from the sun dissipates back into outer space. The equilibrium between the solar energy received and the heat that's dissipated produces average global temperatures and climates. This in turn, along with the existence of liquid water and an atmosphere of oxygen, nitrogen, and carbon dioxide, also supports the existence of hydrocarbon-based life forms. Curiously, life recycles and regenerates what would otherwise be dissipated by using solar energy. All systems are regulated by entropy, which balances available supplies of energy and material resources that are used and recycled or become unavailable wastes. These systems function as long as more energy and resources are available. Some physical systems may change or break down if there isn't enough energy to sustain them, or as system infrastructure deteriorate. Organic resources, however, are recovered and regenerated continuously, while the sun provides renewable energy to our planet. So natural systems in living organisms are constantly renovated. These natural processes have sustained life for millions of years. So I guess that's one thing. If we were to apply that to society or government, we would say that all things must change, all things evolve. Society naturally evolves, which means that the government has to evolve. We can't just keep things the same. I guess that's one way you can explain to family members. Society is supposed to reflect how humans behave collectively, and humans have evolved over time, and they will continue to evolve over time, which means that governments or just the way that we have life, our society, it has to evolve. We can't keep things the same, right? Things can't be kept. The status quo can't be maintained. And naturally, it's not going to. There's going to be forces that are going to cause our government and society to change. Number 5, space seems mostly empty and limitless. The more it extends, the more we find. There is an inner as well as an outer aspect to space. 1.5, exploring inner and outer space. Much of the universe is empty space, but in comparative terms, to us anyway, it seems limitless. With a recent estimated radius to close to 14 billion light years. The more we study it, the greater we discover it to be. So far, we have been able to orbit our planet fairly successfully and make an occasional excursion to the moon. But those are tiny fractional distances in comparison to a single light year, the distance which light can travel in a year. We have yet to come across one of those light years. Comparatively speaking, this would be less than 1 centimeter of 100,000 kilometers. There is an inner nature to our explorations, which delves into the microcosmos as well. And as our investigations proceed, we uncover other layers of physical dimensions which regulate the subatomic. Particles of atoms and molecules, or organic, chemical, and genetic factors that regulate living organisms, which include us. then for the realm of understanding and contemplation in our thinking process, there is also an inner space within us as individuals. Number 6, the essence of the source never dies. It extends like a spider web into an interconnected network of all systems. 1.6, consciousness and contemplation. Considering such tremendous distances, it may be surprising to know that the essence of everything in our universe is interrelated and unified. All of this is linked by the same web of interrelationships, of dynamic and cyclic interactions between systems. And although there's much to be discovered, there's much we already understand. We have become the first species in our planet to become sentient and aware of who we are. This has given us abilities to dominate and change our environment, though not always with the results we desire, or without unforeseen negative consequences. While we have learned to manage a small part of what we do in order to prosper and survive, we've not always done that effectively or well. There are other levels of awareness we have yet to master, and that's what I was getting at. It's all about perspective, right? We've only studied certain aspects of the system, but there's still all these other aspects that we don't understand. And collectively, I think our society doesn't understand that in order for there to be effective changes, we all need to collectively raise our awareness. We all collectively need to raise our consciousness. Because right now, a lot of people think that there's certain methods that we need to do in order to get to a certain solution. People have all these different ways that they think would work best for overthrowing capitalism or having a new government, but then they're overlooking other aspects. They're overlooking psychology. For example, I think that if we were to completely change everybody who's in charge, like completely replace everybody, like if we managed to replace all our presidents, everybody in Congress, if we were to even change the system and still have like a government, and then we have new leaders, if we aren't aware of ourselves yet, of certain psychological weaknesses we have, I think that a lot of those new leaders that we have, those new replacements, will commit some of the same, will have some of the same problems that our previous leaders have. That they're going to commit some of the same mistakes. Some of them may give into greed. And we can say, oh, but there's going to be certain checks and balances and stuff. If we're allowed to give certain people a certain amount of power, they can still do things that will benefit them at the expense of everybody else. And in order to prevent that from happening, we need to become more aware of our psychology. We need to become more aware of ourselves so that we can have more self-control and do what's best. All right, so here's number 7. What lasts or lives forever doesn't live for itself. Only by looking beyond yourself can you see everything else. 1.7. Becoming aware of a greater continuum. The essence of everything we perceive is the universe itself, which relative to us as living organisms never dies. Life regenerates as part of the same continuum. A problem exists in the rather short perspectives we have of day-to-day existence in our own lifetimes. We tend to perceive things around us in limited time frames as individuals who don't take much larger dynamic time spans into account, which we haven't yet fully understand. As we become conscious of events beyond ourselves and our own limited spheres of influence, we also become aware of principles which extend through space and time. Thus, it becomes possible to extend our understanding beyond the limits of individual perceptions through what we learn from others. Important knowledge never dies. It is passed on from generation to generation as part of a general continuum of human consciousness. Number 8. Like water, flows between all things connect systems together. We make better choices when we understand how things flow and are interrelated. All right, so like when it comes to government and how our society is right now, understanding how foreign policy affects environmental policy or environmental aspects, understanding how war can negatively affect the environment, how the environment negatively affected can negatively affect people, how negatively affecting the ecosystem can negatively affect people and their health, and how that can influence big pharma or all these other greedy corporations to sell us these fake solutions, these treatments that are not actually going to cure our diseases, and etc. All right, 1.8, all systems are interconnected. Flows within and between systems connect all things effortlessly. Flows interchange matter and energy through space and time. All systems work in this way, though we come to understand them through their different manifestations. Dynamicists who study these flows can create models to understand how systems work, project or simulate possibilities, and identify issues or problems which affect those systems. People may not make choices which are optimal because they don't understand how the system which affect them actually work. Since certain systems are counterintuitive, some people may make decisions that produce undesired results. Dynamicists who understand how system flows are interrelated may be able to find the root cause of problems and resolve them. This doesn't always work in a practical sense because issues which affect the majority of us won't have the same impact on those who exercise control. Number 9, to keep the most we can get, we would have to stop time. This is a universal law. Learn to stop once you have finished your job. 1.9, selective distribution. In spite of the immense physical universe and our awareness of it as a species, men have chosen to compete for control of physical resources, and most people's lives are spent working or struggling in order to survive in economic systems that don't allow them to share the tremendous potential wealth that might have been available to everyone. I guess I was going to say, this sounds like a critique of capitalism, and then the book goes on to mention capitalism. So let's see what the author has to say. Capitalism and other economic models maximize profit-keeping motives for only a few select individuals. Businesses and corporations subscribe to and practice principles which are intended to maximize extraction of human and physical resources to benefit a corporate elite. Despite apparent disparities from the start, those who practice this are rarely concerned about the inverted long-term consequences of exponential growth. People who ignore this hope that the resources of our planet will somehow be infinite. At least this is what the elite seem to be saying when they take or limit resources for others. Eventually, everyone will have enough resources if you follow our leadership. The problem is that people who are unaware of the limits to exponential growth don't know when to curb exploitation and development until it's too late to avoid serious consequences. Should we follow them? In any case, there would be enough for everyone if resources were distributed more equitably in the first place. All right, there you go. This book does a lot of that, by the way. It critiques capitalism a lot, which I think is really good. We should be critiquing that. It's a big reason for why we have a lot of the problems that we have, whether it be personal or collective, right? The stress that we have, how we are forced to work in these conditions where the elite are benefiting and we are not, and some people in our jobs, I'm pretty sure all of us have probably experienced people like managers, for example, that think that the way things are that things should just be kept that way. And then if you ask for a raise, they're like, no, you can't get a raise. You have to work more. Like, that's not, like, they do everything in their power to make the company benefit, but not the people. All right, that's not a sustainable system that we're living in right now. And I think that naturally this is going to change over time as people become more aware. As people become more aware of how the system works, we're going to, I guess, all come to a realization that we need to have a different system. All right, but that's it for now. And I'll read the second chapter in the next video. All right. And if there's any other topics that you guys would like me to cover, let me know in the comment section. I know that general elections are coming up. And unfortunately, I'm seeing people that are going back to hero worshiping and thinking that certain presidential candidates are going to save them, or that we need to get their message across, as if we haven't heard this message over and over again already. Did 2016 and 2020 not happen, guys? Did we not hear Bernie already say the same thing over and over again about corporations and lobbyists and stuff? And then this didn't get us anywhere. And then all of a sudden we have candidates like RFK Jr. running as a Democrat again. I thought we were done with the Democratic Party, and here we have people saying that they support RFK Jr. Or people saying that they were done with sheep herders, or people like Bernie Sanders, and we got people supporting Cornel West. RFK Jr., who supports Israel. And then you say, oh, but he was right on Fauci and the jab and all that. But look, he supports Israel that forced all their people to get jabbed. That's a major player in the fourth industrial revolution and intelligence and all this other stuff. And that's who RFK Jr. supports. And then we got Cornel West. If you look at my Twitter, I shared a video of an old interview that Cornel West had where he was praising Fauci. Look, if he's going to be that poor of a judge of character with the decades of information we had of Fauci already and what he did in the 80s and the 90s with the AIDS epidemic, his corruption, like, he has a long track record of being corrupt. If he's going to be that much of a poor judge of character, he's not going to be I don't think he's going to be a good enough leader. But yeah, I can go on and on about all that. I don't want to get sidetracked, but I'll finish here, guys. All right, I'll read chapter 9. I mean, not chapter 9, chapter 2 of 9 in the next video. Take care, everyone. Stay informed.